Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 29 of Theme Park Workshop. My name is Adam Johnson. I'm joined today here by
Kelley Hoffman. Hi, everybody.
And yeah, it's episode 29, and we're coming at you with some reviews. That's right. We got to experience, or I got to experience, the TRON Lightcycle / run ride over at Magic Kingdom. We've waited a long time for it, and yes, everyone, I can assure you it is real. And we also did the Sir Henry's Love's Revenge event that happened this past weekend before Valentine's Day, and it was a lot of fun. A little spoiler, it was fun, and we can't wait to talk about that more. But before we get into that, I want to shout out our patrons over at patreon.com/themeparkworkshop. Thank you to our patrons Landon Kanoki, Jonathan Edward, and our brand new patron, Jordan Buster.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for your patronage. We're so glad that that our show is good and entertaining enough for you that you decide to support us. And we thank you for your support, and you can check that out at patreon.com/themeparkworkshop. But our $5 patrons, they do get bonus episodes, which will be available after these episodes go out. I think we've already got like 4 or 5 up there, so go check that out. It's a lot of fun. Thank you once again.
We appreciate you guys, and we're happy that you're here. Today we are missing Bella just due to scheduling, but we still wanted to hang out with you guys and give you an episode. And since Adam and I got to go to Sir Henry's together, we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about TRON because I'm very excited about it, and Adam has been on it. Really quick before we get into that, though, I'm pretty stoked about the new Busch Gardens ride that I feel like kind of snuck up on us. Like, I totally forgot that was a thing that they were making, and then all of a sudden now it's opening on February 27th, which is crazy. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, there's a new ride like right down the street from me. That's cool.
No, yeah, it's definitely exciting.
Yeah, and it looks pretty cool. It looks like something that would be at like the Florida State Fair or any kind of like carnival like that, but like better. I feel like,
yeah,
like it's like a big, I don't know
swing.
If swing is the right way. Yeah, is it swing? Yeah.
And for more information, because it did pop up really suddenly, like I feel like I follow theme parks decently well, especially the ones in my area. And this just kind of quietly got built up in the Rhino Rally corner. This is more or less the replacement for Rhino Rally. Less rhinos, less rally, but more Serengeti and more flying, because it's called the Serengeti Flyer. How do they describe it? There's multiple negative G moments for plunging back toward the earth. Twin dueling arms soar progressively higher, reaching speeds of 68 miles per hour. That's very fast, at a maximum height of 135 feet at the ride's peak. They call it record-breaking. It's the tallest and fastest ride of its kind. I don't know how much is in the competition. I don't see many rides like this outside of like the fairs, but nevertheless, 135 feet. 68 miles per hour. That opens on February 27th, very end of the month. And if you are a pass holder, the preview dates are happening very soon, like the week this comes out soon. Friday, February 24th is the Platinum Pass members. And if you have like the Every Busch Pass, Passport to Thrills, those are happening on February 24th. If you're a Platinum, Gold, Silver, and Bronze member, then that Saturday, the 25th, all day, is the pass holder preview for them. And all pass holders get to experience this the day before it opens on Sunday, February 26th. And then everyone in the entire world gets to ride this ride for the first time on February 27th, that being a Monday. Catch the Mondays, go ride the Serengeti Flyer, I suppose. We're definitely going to try to ride that as soon as we can, because we think it'll be pretty fun. And also, it's a new ride in the area. It's always fun to talk about those.
Definitely. Yeah. And I haven't had a Busch Gardens pass in probably about a year. I don't think I had it last year. But honestly, this is enough to get me over there, especially because I really loved Iron Gwazi when I rode it during Howl-O-Scream, and I want to ride it again and again and again. So this is enough to get me to buy a pass. I definitely want to go on this as soon as possible. I think it looks interesting. I actually loved Rhino Rally when I was a kid, but this is a cool ride to put in Busch Gardens too, just because I feel like there's a lot to see. Like, I think it's going to be cool views while also being clearly very thrilling with the speeds and height. So yeah, I am down to go on this very soon after it opens.
I've made jokes on here before maybe not jokes, I think just more comments, how like I'm a Busch Gardens pass holder, but I rarely use it. And so I've been talking about just like not doing it in 2023, and maybe I still won't, but I know I've got some extra time left that I will be able to ride this, and maybe this will change my mind. I mean, I know I've done Iron Gwazi, but I've only done it that one time before it even opened. So like I'm really not using my pass to the greatest extent despite being a local, but I'll be interested to see if this ride will convert me once again to the Busch Gardens side.
We shall see.
Mhm.
Back to Orlando, of course. So Universal Mardi Gras, we saw some photos that honestly were very exciting for me. The caption here from Go for Show Photography says, hashtag diversity is universal. More than ever, this year's Mardi Gras parade contains all shapes, sizes, genders, and races that all have one thing in common: smiling faces. And it has a bunch of photos of people of all different colors, shapes, sizes, doing the Mardi Gras parade. And as somebody who has lived in Orlando and wanted to get into entertainment, but definitely didn't fit the costume sizes at a lot of the theme parks, especially Disney, where I have seen people that were on size probation that are way smaller than me. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is not the place for me. You know, like seeing that there are performers and actors that have all these different shapes and sizes is just really exciting. And I think it's going to be awesome for everyone to see that.
I think so too. And I think what I've noticed is seeing more diversity, whether it's like race diversity or size diversity or gender diversity in a theme park or a space like that. It just feels like more welcome, even if you don't necessarily identify with a different group or anything like that. It's just like, no, this is like a place for everyone. And I think it's easier to kind of not blend in with that, but, you know, get along with it. Like you're won over a little bit more, and it helps you feel good in that space, I think. So and then they also did that new street show. I think it's called Bailar.
Yeah.
That has a similar thing where it's a Latin street show, but they've got like same-sex dance partners, and I think they've got partners of different size as well. So I think Universal is starting to really make a good push. I say starting, they've probably been doing it before, a good push towards diversity of all kinds in their shows and in their attractions.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a non-binary person in the escape room, one of the escape rooms, I think, too. So there you go.
I love that. See, I feel like Universal is definitely making more of that kind of push. Wish some of their rides would do the same thing as far as sizing. But Disney, I have definitely, you know, their entertainment could use a little bit more in that direction for sure. However, I know that like with their workforce, where they've like allowed people to have different hair colors that are maybe not as natural, or like certain races have been able to have their natural hair instead of like something that's kind of more you know, straight or more traditional as to what they used to have. But they have definitely opened up a lot more diversity for their cast members and tattoos, even like Harry Potter and Universal tattoos, which is cool as long as it's something that's appropriate. And seeing people of all different genders paint their nails, the fact that anyone can wear any of the costume types, like that I could wear pants at Haunted Mansion or anyone could wear the skirts, is really cool. So I like going into these theme parks where it just feels more welcoming. You know, when you walk into Disney and you see these people that, you know, are able to express themselves in these ways that they definitely couldn't a few years ago, it's very exciting. So I like that theme parks are getting much more in the right direction with all of this. It's just very nice to see.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about that with one of the other stories too, just how the storylines that they're portraying also touch on that, like try to bring about diversity and make that more welcoming space. But yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said.
Oh, super exciting.
Hope the industry keeps on moving forward that way.
For sure. I totally agree. So let's talk about TRON.
Yeah.
I'm excited. If you haven't heard, starting on the 16th, which will be before this episode releases, so I hope that if you wanted to get one, you're able to get one. But they are doing the pass holder previews, so tomorrow, from the day we're recording, I'm going to be trying to get that for myself and my husband and a friend of ours. But Yeah, I've seen a lot of videos. Sometimes I care about spoilers, sometimes I don't, but I have seen a lot of things for Tron just because like I knew that it was, I've seen it from was it Shanghai that it started in?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I have seen like a lot of those videos already. So yeah, I have seen a lot of the stuff from this ride. It's not going to be super surprising, but I am very excited to try it out and see how that launches and everything like that. So Adam, talk a little bit about your experience with that.
So I was lucky enough to experience this because of a cast member friend of mine, Chandler, friend of the show. You've seen him before if you've been watching our channel. I'm very thankful that he invited me and some other friends out to experience this. I thought we weren't going to experience it until like March at the earliest because I figured like, well, it's opening in April. And then March is probably when the previews are going to happen. And then all of a sudden I'm going in February last week. And so that was a really, really cool experience besides the quality of the ride. Like it's always cool to experience something early, especially something that we've been so looking forward to or waiting for. I think we stopped looking forward to it more so than waiting for it to actually happen because it took so long for being a port and everything. But it's here and you almost don't care about that. I feel like that happens with everything. And I'll touch on the queue. I'll touch on the ride experience, locker system. It's the first Disney ride to require lockers. And so I definitely want to touch on that. With that, there come praises and criticisms. But one thing that I know I've loved doing on this channel and on this podcast is talking about how the story works. And so we'll definitely touch on that and the theming with Tomorrowland. And ultimately, Disney is not cheap. So you definitely want to consider, is this worth the trip out to Magic Kingdom or Disney World or what have you? Or maybe it's good. Or is it like it's worth it? So we'll touch on all of that. I'll start with the queue. Most of the queue is actually outside, I felt like. And I only say that because if y'all have been on the Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure at Universal, it's set up much the same way, where you're waiting maybe the first half of the queue outdoors. If you've been to Cosmic Rewind, it's kind of similar with the outdoor umbrellas. They have those back. This is back behind Space Mountain, though, and they do have the canopy. So I rode this at night, so I don't know how it's going to be with the sun and everything, but I'm imagining it'll feel more shaded because it is sandwiched between Space Mountain and the show building for Tron. That's where most of the queue is. And then you go into the actual show building and you experience a brief pre-show. And I'm not going to get into spoilers with that because I think that's one of the few surprises left. But I will say my fear of heights was somehow triggered by this more so than my fear of heights was triggered more in the queue pre-show, the way it's set up, more so than the ride where I'm on an open air bike. It's very interesting. It kind of took me out of it. But yeah.
That's so interesting. I haven't seen anything about the pre-show, so I will definitely try to keep that hidden to myself. That's fun.
Yeah. I don't know if it was actually my fear of heights or maybe I was just like, my brain was going 6 different ways and just like in that particular moment, that's where it's like, hey, bud, you need to calm down or you need to sit down or whatever. So I actually did like sit down. I wish there's like water fountains because I did get lightheaded. I don't know what it was. I think it was the fear of heights because I've only experienced the same sensation on like Flight of Passage riding that bike where I know like 50 feet below me is the floor. Maybe more, So that was certainly a thing. Or like when I do those VR Star Wars things and you get too close to the side, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall. Like it was the same idea, but I don't think many people are going to have that experience. I just wanted to point out because I had that experience. But besides that, it's very cool. It's very dark. It does very much feel like you're in the grid in the world of Tron. You get to see the bikes launch quite a bit. It's very black. It's very blue. There are some posters set up throughout kind of the second room of the queue that I know some people in my party are making fun of because they don't look nearly as futuristic as the rest of the attraction. Maybe closer to something like, I want to say Poster Board and Buzz because those are very cartoony, but it doesn't feel like something from 2023. It feels more like something from like 2012.
I will say that sounds like that fits perfectly in Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
Tomorrowland is very not actually futury, but so yeah. That's perfect.
But this doesn't feel like the most futuristic attraction there, I think. And I think that's one of the things that we were all kind of wondering going into TRON Lightcycle Run was like, is this going to feel part of Tomorrowland? Is it going to feel like its own thing? I mean, it's even like, all the way in the back, like past the Speedway, past Space Mountain. And I always saw Space Mountain as the back of Tomorrowland, and now there's even another back, like a further back. But I think in the end, I feel like at least aesthetically, it does fit. And maybe those posters helped. But yeah, you went into that room and they kind of explain the storyline and safety instructions there. And then you put your things in the locker. And so the locker system, again, as I said before, this is the first locker system required at the Magic Kingdom or any Walt Disney World ride. Like Rock and Roller Coaster, you can bring your bags with you, just put them at your feet. By some witchcraft or miracle, they stay. It's science, but still, it's very strange. I had a friend bring a droid from the Droid Depot onto Rock and Roller Coaster with him, and it stayed, and he brought it back home, and he has fun with it all the time. So I'm like mind blown. Yeah. So even on like a loopy coaster, you can bring your stuff, but you can't bring all of your stuff onto Tron, and that's because there's no place to put it, really. I mean, they do have a compartment to put like your phone and your keys and whatnot. Small items, small loose articles. But like if you've got a bag or you did a lot of shopping, you will need to use the lockers. But it's very Velocicoaster style, which is a great thing. These are the optimal lockers where you wait in the queue with your items, and then basically at the last point of the queue, you put them in the locker, and then you do the ride, you do the whole experience, and it's waiting on the other side for you. It's a 2-door locker. Put it in one side, and then afterwards you get it out the other. So it's a very smooth process. We didn't have any issues with it. What you do is you tap the locker light, and you put your stuff in there, and then you just remember the number, and then you tap, and there you go. I think if you forget the number, though, they do have a console that will remember your number for you, or like it'll recognize your scanner, then it'll open for you. I did not test that. But I'm pretty sure that's what that console was for. If worse comes to worse, a cast member can help. It's not like, oh yeah, Brachiosaurus 205 or whatever, like it is over at Velocicoaster. It's like 423. I need to remember 423, 423, 423, 423. I only brought like small items. We still use the locker system to test it out. But to reiterate, you do have a small compartment, kind of about the size of the Forbidden Journey benches. There is like a little compartment there. You can put your small loose articles. So I know a lot of people have used that. But now you get to the part you're all waiting for. What's the ride actually like? You know, you're talking about this queue, you're talking about these lockers, but I want to know, what's the ride like? So the vehicles are very different than most ride vehicles you've probably experienced. Maybe you've done the Pony Express, but yeah, this is not a normal ride vehicle. It's more like if Flight of Passage was on a roller coaster track, more so than Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure. So you're basically leaning onto your bike, or you imagine you're riding a Harley, or a motorcycle. That's basically more of the idea as to being in a bike-like thing. And there's two to a row. It's a pretty long row. And there's this has kind of been like the source of some contention lately. We didn't really hear about it when it opened in Shanghai, but now that it's open here, it's because you'll fit on it differently. There have been folks who might not fit on like Hagrid's sidecar. They might not fit in Hagrid's sidecar very well, but they're fitting on Tron because the restraint isn't on your back. It's not on your chest. It's not with your arms or anything like that. It's on your what's it called? Calves. It's on your calves. The ride restraint is on your calves, and it's a bar to keep them in place. So it's very much your kind of open air. There is a thing on your back, but it's not restraining you. It's more for comfort, more for the perception of safety. I don't think it's not gonna fling you out. It's not gonna break if you lean on it, but it's not necessarily holding you in there either. At first, I thought it was kind of digging into my ribs the way I was on it. But by the time the ride ended, and I kind of figured, oh, this is how I'm supposed to be on it. And it happened very naturally. I wasn't even overthinking it on the ride. I kind of fixed myself, and it was a lot more comfortable. It's a very comfortable thing for me. And I was like 195 pounds when I went on it. And I carry most of my weight in my belly than anywhere else. So I thought they could have used more restraint for me, because I did feel like I wasn't even restrained at all. I didn't feel it in my calves. Didn't feel it on my legs. Didn't feel it on my back. But I was holding on, and I'm like, well, they said it was good. So there you go. It goes into a launch to almost 60 miles an hour. It's 59.3, basically 60. It's a super launch. When it goes into this giant like curve, outdoor curve, you'll see it when you go into the line. It's right as you're walking towards it. It's the weenie, as we call it. It's the thing that attracts you to the ride, and you're like, I don't know exactly what this is, but I need to experience that. And that is the highlight of the attraction. After that, you go into the dark ride portion. And here I'd compare it more to like Cosmic Rewind with how it uses its screen elements. There's a lot of screen elements. It's very dark. And this is where the storyline of the ride really takes place, which is your Team Blue. You're in a race. You've been transported to the grid to participate in this light cycle race. If you've seen the movies, you know the light cycle is not it's not supposed to be fun. It's just very exciting to watch, but it's like a death match. This is not a death match. You're just trying to capture some gates, like a certain number of gates first before the other team does. And then the ride's over. There's a couple of drops, like mild drops. There's a couple of twists and turns, but really the thrill aspect is in the 60-mile-per-hour launch on a bike. And it is worth it because it is thrilling. I don't love launch coasters. They make me feel uneasy. I'll do launch coasters because that's all that there seems to be in the Central Florida area. But like the way that you're situated on this bike, it really didn't feel like I was overwhelmed by the G's in the same way I am by like the Hulk or by Revenge of the Mummy, or as uncomfortable as my face can get like on Velocicoaster. It felt much more natural and smooth, and I think it's because you're in a vehicular setup more so than those others. But yeah, I will say my biggest criticism for the ride is it feels short. Now, there have been many people who said it's as long as Slinky Dog. It is as long as other coasters that you love. So is it really fair to complain about the length? And I think it's because the pacing of this ride is different. I think a lot of these other roller coasters that we're talking about, whether it is Velocicoaster, whether it is Expedition Everest or Slinky Dog, there's like a pretty good halfway point. And there's a halfway point in this shore when there's the outside launch portion, and then there's the indoor story portion. And I say story, it's not very plot heavy, but it's where like the Disney storytelling happens. But I think the difference between Tron and Slinky Dog, like Slinky Dog is a far more mild roller coaster, but I think for some people it'll feel more satisfying because each half has a good thrill element. You know, the first half of Slinky Dog has a launch or two, and there's like some fun curves and drops and all of that. And then you pause for a good while, but then you go into the biggest launch of the ride, and then you've got Wheezy at the end. So it feels like each section is filled with something to engage you or that's fun. And Everest has the curves and the twists and the until you stop at the broken track portion. And then there's a whole reverse section. And then there's that really intense drop out of there. And of course, the face-to-face with Disco Yeti. So like, it feels like these other roller coasters have more going on to them. And maybe and they're different thrills, don't get me wrong. But I feel like the two halves, they feel more even and they offer something different. Whereas Tron is very, very much the reason to ride this ride is at the front. It's a great reason to ride. It's a 60-mile-per-hour launch, for goodness sake. And you get to see all the people down below you. And it's unlike anything you'll experience at the Magic Kingdom or Walt Disney World for that matter. But everything else after that, I wish it lived up to the hype. And I even remember like when it ends, there's a really cool screen portion and effect. If you're on the right side, you'll catch it where characters de-resed. And if you've seen Tron Legacy, they break up into blocks. And they do make that very physical. That's kind of how I'll put it, without getting too spoiler. I mean, it's probably already a spoiler, but there's not a lot of plot to spoil here. But I thought that effect was that's a standout effect to me, is how that felt very fluid. I know there's other special effects that go on in there. But to me, that's really what I got into the grid. That's where I'm like, okay, we're in this world now. I've kind of come accustomed to it. Okay, let's see what else you got. And then it breaks, and then the bass drops and it plays the Tron Legacy theme. And the voice overhead's like, congratulations, Team Blue. You have won the challenge. And I'm like, but, and the train was just silent. Because like, oh, it's over already? Like the entire train was like that awkward silence. So I'll get on to, that's my biggest criticism. It's the pacing. I don't think it's the ride itself. I think if you're comparing to all these other things, it's just as good. It's just as thrilling. It's definitely worth experiencing. But I think the source of all of this criticism for the ride is coming from the way it's paced. But I've also had people in my party say it was the best roller coaster in the entire resort. but I've had a lot of us say, well, it's no Cosmic Rewind. It's no Cosmic Rewind. So take that for what it's worth. The story, as I said before, I think it's well told. It's easier to follow than Cosmic Rewind, but I think the plot is completely bare bones and not what I would expect from a Tron attraction, because it's like, this is a race. You're here to race. It's just a race. Welcome to Tron. All right, there you go. Bye-bye. But the aspects and the details of the race, I think, are clearer to see than the entire battle with the Celestial over at Cosmic Rewind, even though Cosmic Rewind, in my opinion, is a better ride. But that comes down to my last point, which is it worth the trip? Yes and no. I'll say yes and no. I think if you go to Magic Kingdom, there's so much at Magic Kingdom. If you don't get the virtual line for this, it's not going to end your day. Whereas if you couldn't get into Flight of Passage over at Animal Kingdom, even though I think Animal Kingdom's the best park and it's got all sorts of great attractions that I love, I know not everyone is interested in riding a ride from 2004 or 2000 when they go to Animal Kingdom. So Flight of Passage, if you don't get to ride that, that's a real bummer. If you go to Hollywood Studios and somehow you didn't ride Rise of the Resistance, well, you got to go back and ride Rise of the Resistance, or that's a day wasted. Epcot, if you can't get into Cosmic Rewind, okay, I guess you got to go to Epcot again because you really didn't get to experience the best of Epcot. I feel like if you don't experience those attractions at those 3 other parks, you've missed out on something big. And while I do think you'll have missed out on Tron, I don't think it'll spoil your day the way the other rides and those parks work. So like, definitely go to the Magic Kingdom. It's a great park. Tron is a more thrilling thing there, especially when you've got, Space Mountain, which it has its thrills. It's longer, but it's old and rough. For me, it's still good, but it's got its issues. Big Thunder, everyone's ridden Big Thunder. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, it's got a lot of the same pacing issues and it's not as thrilling. But I feel like if you can't do Tron, you'll be okay. You can go again, but I don't think you need to go to Magic Kingdom only to ride Tron, because it won't spoil your day. It's a really good garnish. I think this is the best way to put it. It's a great garnish to your Magic Kingdom experience. So all in all, I'd say Tron Lightcycle / run. We got rid of power. It's / like a command. Ooh. Tron's Lightcycle / run. It's a lot of fun. It's a great ride system. There are going to be, I think for a while, there's going to be a lot of talk about the size restrictions and things. But I've heard that the bucket seats also, I wanted to mention this too, the bucket seats or the ADA seats, they are, from all the reports I've heard, one of the most forgiving seats in Orlando, or at least Walt Disney World. So guests of pretty much any size could probably ride it, or most sizes could ride it, even if they can't experience the bike experience. And from what I've heard, you're really not missing too much. Sure, you're not horizontal, but the vertical experience is just as good. So yeah, I'm interested to hear what y'all thoughts are. Kelley, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those, of course. Anything I might not have touched that you're wondering about. Good ride, exciting ride, thrilling ride. Front loaded, but I don't think if you can't ride this, it's going to spoil your day the way it will. But it's a great new addition to the Magic Kingdom, which hasn't really had a significant addition in some time. That's why it's really exciting, and it's going to be a great thing for guest experience.
Yeah, definitely have some comments really quick about the seats, just since we last touched on that. I was very excited to see that there are options for a large majority of guests. The only thing that really stinks is that a lot of times it'll add a lot to your wait time, since there are only 2 cars that have it and there's 2 of those seats per car. But I have heard from people that have only been able to ride in those seats that it does have a great view when you're all the way in the back there. You really get to see everything. So at least that's pretty cool. I am very excited to go on this ride. I was actually looking while you were talking about and was like, how long are rides normally? And I feel like, to me, Cosmic Rewind is pretty much a perfect ride. I love that ride. I mean, there are some issues with it, but as far as like length and everything, I think it's great. And that ride, just to give everyone reference, is about 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Most of the roller coasters that you know and love at Disney are around 3 minutes. Space Mountain's just under 3 minutes. Big Thunder Mountain, Everest is about 3.5 minutes, and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is around 3 minutes. Interestingly, Rock and Roller Coaster is about 1.5 minutes. So that's interesting that it's kind of similar, where it has the really quick launch in the front. And then Tron Lightcycle, is it not Power Run anymore? Oh no,
it's in Shanghai. In Shanghai, it's Power Run. but we got rid of power for some reason over in the Magic Kingdom, and they put in like a stylistic slash. But I say slash run. That's just me being silly. It's Tron Lightcycle Run.
Interesting. Okay, I'm just now seeing that. But both the one in Shanghai and the one here are roughly 2 minutes long. So it's kind of more similar to the length of Rock and Roller Coaster. So interesting to see. I feel like people were just so hype about this ride. They're like expecting it to be a little bit longer and a little bit more. And then they go on it and they're like, oh, that's it. So maybe part of the hype I had to deal with that. But I do agree with you that I'm not any less hype about it than I was, when I first heard about it 6 years ago. Maybe that kind of dwindled in the middle there. But now that it's out, I'm like, okay, now I'm still super excited to ride this. And I actually asked that question on Instagram, and all of you that answered agreed with me. So yeah, super excited to try this out. It sounds very thrilling. I'm interested about the queue and the pre-show now, because I hadn't really seen anything about that. So that'll be cool. I've heard a lot of criticisms, but also a lot of praise. So I'm excited to see I am a Tomorrowland apologist. It is my favorite land. Space Mountain is, I can't say it's my favorite because I can't put anything over Haunted Mansion. That's sacrilegious. But but other than Haunted Mansion, I love Space Mountain. I love the People Mover. I just love I love the Carousel of Progress, obviously.
Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor.
I love the Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor. It's so cute.
It's funny. I was thinking the other day, I'm like, I feel like I need to go back to Magic Kingdom to do the Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor.
Yeah. No, I love the Laugh Floor. And there's a couple other rides in there that are fine. But I love everything about Tomorrowland. Sorry to any Buzz Lightyear stands here. I'm really bad at it, okay? I'm really bad at it. I prefer Midway Mania. Oh, it's not even Midway Mania anymore. It's Toy Story Mania. This is
when it comes to Florida, we lose a word every time you move to Florida.
Yeah,
next thing, if they ever reboot Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, it'll just be Big Thunder Mountain. The only
right, exactly.
During imagination with Figment or your imagination, but that was already here. So we can add to what we start, but we're gonna lose anything we get.
Very strange how that happens. Right. But anyway, I'm still super excited about it. I will definitely, whether it's on here or on Patreon, let you guys know what I think once I do hopefully a pass holder preview, but otherwise I'll definitely be there in April. So
yeah, I'm excited to ride this. I also want to add too about the intensity of the ride. If you can do Cosmic Rewind, you can do this. Cosmic Rewind, I felt a lot more G-force on this attraction. On Cosmic Rewind than I did on Tron, to the point where like after 2 rides on Cosmic Rewind, I'm like, I gotta take a bit of a break. I gotta take a break on this. But that's just because I got lucky and got to do it twice. Once they open up the Epcot, everyone could do it. Then, oh boy, almost dropped my coffee. But yeah, Cosmic Rewind's a bit more intense than this. So if you can do that, you can do this no problem, I think. It's also less intense than Rock and Roller Coaster, because Rock and Roller Coaster has loops throughout and corkscrews, and this does not have any of them because of the way you're seated. So if you're worried about how intense it is, I think most guests should be able to ride this. If you've done any roller coaster and you liked it, you should be fine here.
This is just a random question that I'm sure can get a little controversial, but do you have a favorite ride at Disney, Adam? Like, do you have one ride that you're like, this is definitely my favorite, or I think it's the best?
Haunted Mansion.
Okay, me too.
Yeah, I'm not saying that because you're friends and you're my co-host and I want to see more Peachy on here, but no, Haunted Mansion for sure, because of the dark ride elements and the effects. Even though they're old, like they blew my mind the first time I went into the graveyard scene, and I hold that so dearly every time. And also, I like spooky things. Yeah. And going into the Magic Kingdom, because I don't go to Disney a lot, and I think because of that, on this podcast, I can seem a little negative or like, Disney World, it's Disney, but Universal, but Disney. But I cannot lie, when we pass the threshold of like under the railroad, and I'm like, I'm in the Magic Kingdom, I'm in Disney World. I got so emotional and so excited. I'm like, guys, it's actually happening. No one else was having that experience. No one was like so ebullient, but because they go to Magic Kingdom all the time, and Disney World all the time, they work there as a cast member preview, for crying out loud. But going in there, I'm like, oh yeah, this is why we love Disney. This is why we like, these parks and everything. So if there's ever an advertisement for the Pixie Dust Pass, it might have been this.
Well, that's definitely how it feels too, like going to a Disney park in another place. We all three need to go to California because I want to go back and go to Disneyland again. Because like it looks very similar to walking down Main Street at Magic Kingdom, besides the castle being smaller. And it's cuter though. They have a cute castle.
It's pink.
It's pink. It's so pretty. But like it just feels very similar, but it's also different. So it's just gives you that feeling again that we all like everyone who's listening to this, that's if they've been to Magic Kingdom, they know what feeling you're talking about. But when you go there all the time, you can kind of lose that. So it's cool going somewhere else where they have that. But you also need to see Haunted Mansion Holiday, because if nobody listened to my episode about how much I love Haunted Mansion Holiday and that I am a ghost there, that is the truth. But I agree with you on Haunted Mansion. Now, number 2, probably Cosmic Rewind. I love that ride very much.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
It used to be Tower of Terror. I think Tower of Terror is probably my number 3 now. But I love Cosmic Rewind. It's a great ride.
No, that's a great one. That's a great one.
So do I think
I'm not going to say what I think my number 2 is because I can't remember. I'm going to get in trouble if I put a ranking wrong. I'm still remembering episode 25 or HHN review.
Oh no. I have a lot of favorite Disney rides though. Flight of Passage is very close. Rise of the Resistance is pretty close as well. So and Tower of Terror is a nostalgia thing for sure. And obviously I like spooky rides. But anyway, there's a different episode where we can someday go into all these rankings. But basically,
I know I was about to go on an entire tangent. I'm like, wait a minute, we have things scheduled.
Yes, basically just to end that, my point is that I don't think that I'll like Tron more than I like Cosmic Rewind, but they're also very different and it's not the same thing. So I'm curious to see what I think of it and how it compares to other things and fits into Tomorrowland. But speaking of liking spooky stuff, how do you like that for a transition?
Love it!
Grin again. Film is a weapon. Weapon.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
I will keep these lights up until the day I die. I think there's a chance that Will's still out there.
The caretaker is here.
So Adam and I and Adam's mom got to go to Sir Henry's again. If you remember from Christmas time, we went to the Christmas event. Now we got to go to Love's Revenge, which I have been to before. I think it was last year. I might have gone for 2 years now. I can't remember how long they've been doing that, but I'm super excited to go back again. One thing that we noticed was I really like how the trails from October to December to February of this year, since, it takes them a long time to work on these sets. And I think now that this is closed, they're starting to work on the ones for Halloween already, which is really exciting. But it's cool that they have a similar system and it's like got similar sets, probably the same sets, but they add like different decorations and actors. Well, actually a lot of the actors have been the same. We've recognized that, which I think is really cool that they do it all the time. But anyway, they have different characters is the word I was looking for, and costumes and all of this fun stuff. So it feels like an entirely different trail, and it is, but a lot of the set pieces are the same or similar, and I just think that's cool the way they do that, because it's fun to be like, oh look, I remember a scare in here last year. Oh, but they changed it. That's really cool. So there were 2 trails that we went on. So Cupid's Revenge was the first one that we did. So this is where Sleigh Bells was last year, for anyone that has been keeping track or has been to the event. So similar to the Sleigh Bells, which was about like elves taking over and everything, it was kind of a similar format. So just to give you a little bit of background, this is what you'll find outside of the trail. It says centuries of bringing couples together has taken its toll on Cupid. What's more, with the astronomical rate of divorce, murders, and heartache, it seems like his work is pointless. Fed up, he decides to have some twisted fun, destroying every couple who comes across his path. Cupid leaves a trail of pain and blood in his wake. Will you be fortunate enough to escape his piercing arrows, or will you fall victim to his revenge? So very similar to where, in December, they were upset the kids were not, in the Christmas spirit anymore, not believing in Santa. Now Cupid is feeling like all of his hard work is just being thrown in his face, and he's very upset about it, and all of the Cupids are upset. So it's kind of fun. We went through a divorce court at one point where they asked if any of us were getting divorced, and we were all like, no. And they were like, get out. You know, you see couples that are upset, but it was just like interesting that there's all these, you know, Cupids running around trying to shoot you with arrows. There was one point where in the beginning, we were being followed by a Cupid who just kept this arrow. I was in the back, unfortunately, just pointed at me for like quite a while. I like that they kind of follow you through certain parts of the trail. So if you don't like that, go in the front like I usually do. But I like that every single person gets a different scare, because we went through these trails a few times since we had the VIP pass again, which is only about $10 more. And, you know, you get a completely different experience if you're in the back versus the front. You know, the front, they'll talk to you a lot as you walk in, or maybe you'll even miss some of the scares. Same thing in the back. Maybe you don't quite get a scare, but then you have someone following you, or you have something that pops out later. So this one was just very creative and interactive, and we went through it twice, and you know, we did have a couple of different interactions, and then some were very much the same. So it's kind of cool to see that.
I liked how they all tried to have like a Greek accent, because Cupid is a Greek character. There's some funny moments. There was like a funny portion here where you're in a church, which is a carryover from Halloween, at least. It could have been there earlier, but you go through this church and this woman's like, I killed my husband. He was so terrible. I did the right thing, right? And because she's got like a machete, you're like, And then you get out of the church and there's a guy standing there, like, I don't know what I did. I just, she cut my head off and now my wallet is happy. You know what I mean? Hey.
Yes, that was super fun.
And of course, there's like chainsaws and stuff and some good scary moments. And with this particular trail, I thought, you know, more so than like pop outs, you know, because most of the characters you see walking into each room. But I think it was more so like, how would you get scared off of this? I think it was more so like, it was kind of overwhelming with people yelling at you. Like, buy my roses, buy my roses. I did the right thing, right? No, you didn't do the right thing. What are you doing out of my divorce court? Loud noise, loud noise. So these are always fun. It was less funny than last year, but I think it was a more intense, or last year, gosh, Christmas. Because Christmas, we did that like 4 times. We did sleigh bells 4 times.
They were getting sick of us.
Yeah, they did. They really did. After we ran out of money.
Yes. We didn't have any money this time.
But here, I thought it was a nice way to like have the same type of storyline, but have a different edge to it as opposed to just like a different theme. So this was a fun trail to go through. I wish there was like there's like a long dark hallway, and I wish there was something going on in there, and usually there is. And I think that's one thing too with them reusing the same spaces. You don't want to have the same scares every time, or you're gonna be like, oh, yep, scare. Okay, yep, the scare's gonna be there. All right, cool. But they did a really good job with this particular trail. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Christmas in that trail, or in that dark hallway, if I remember correctly, because it is outdoors, because it's, you know, a haunted trail, and so it's like a trellis or something where you're kind of enclosed, but it is, you know, open air and everything. And there was someone in there during Christmas or Halloween. I don't know. I've been on these trails so many times.
I think
probably both. And they were like dressed in either all black or very dark colors, so you couldn't see them at first. In this one, it just played this creepy like noise that sounded like dripping blood. So it still got like an unsettling effect to it for me, but there wasn't anyone there. And so the second time I knew that for sure too. So yeah, that one was great. It was very fun. Like, I'm glad we started with that one just because it was more like interactive and fun. Truth
you guys
or
recognize
Dare.
a lot of the actors too.
Yes, we recognized a lot of the actors from last year. Truth or Dare, the other trail, messed me up. It was so scary. And I'll talk about, you know, we're talking about spoilers here just because if you haven't been, unfortunately, you won't be able to go again this year since it is closed. But definitely next year when they have new trails, you should check out this event. But man, so the story for this one is every Valentine's night, local teenagers dare each other to sneak into an old creepy house and leave a graffiti heart with initials as proof they were there. However, many who enter the house are never seen again. Legend has it that an old couple who died in their sleep decades earlier in that same house kills the teens who sneak in on Valentine's. But if the couple is dead, what is really going on in this old mansion? Will you find out the truth, or will this dare become the death of you? Well, it almost did become the death of me because this one was very scary. I started out in the front the first time we did this, and there were just some parts in this that were very effective. Now the trail is very similar to the Krampusnacht trail where you're in a house. It was similar to the one also from, it was the 1920s
Halloween, Final Cut.
Yes, Final Cut. Thank you. So, that I figured it was going to be very similar to that. And formulaically, I guess it was, because you are going through those scenes. But this one, they really changed it up. The, storytelling aspect was very evident in it, which I liked in this part because, like, you see people doing the graffiti and then you get sprayed with, like, the spray paint, but it's, of course, air. You do see the old couple a lot throughout this story, so that kind of keeps the theming of that, where you're like, oh, this is the ghosts that are tormenting them. And there's actually a scene where it's the old woman and she's working on something and she's like hunched over, but you can tell it's a real person, and you keep waiting. I feel like it's, like in a horror movie where you're like anticipating something and you're very scared, but then once they show it, you're like, oh, okay, it's over. Well, we did it twice and she never looked up, never like really like stopped doing what she was doing, but it's a real person. So that was very unsettling for me because I was just waiting, and then you get air blown at you from under the table. So although she doesn't move, there is still a scare there, and it's just very well done. You go through, all the rooms. There is queer representation where there is a girl asking where her girlfriend is and that she can't find her girlfriend. So I loved to see that, of course. But there is a particular scene where you're going through a closet, and we have talked about this previously because it scares me every time. There's a completely dark hallway before that, and then it's pretty dark in the closet as well. You're like touching clothes because they're right next to you, and there's usually someone like within the clothes. Well, the first time we went through this, someone ran across. There was like a slit between the clothes diagonally. They ran across that diagonal. They're wearing like all black, and they just sprint right in front of me. I'm already panicking. And then they hid in a dark corner as you're making a corner over there and made the most horrible shriek I've ever heard in my life. So if that person is listening, you did a great job. I was terrified. That scared me more than anything else. Honestly, probably one of the scariest moments I've ever had at Sir Henry. So that was great. Just that unsettling, like, like if you're playing a horror video game or something, like you see something run past and you're like, well, that's going to be a problem for me later. That was the moment that I felt that. So that was great. This one was slightly less interactive, where you're not like necessarily talking to them as much, or like, there were points where we're like walking and talking with like ghosts and stuff in the Cupid's Revenge. This one was definitely scarier and more intense, darker, but it was fantastic and I loved it.
Yeah, this particular location, whether you think of it as like Krampusnacht or Final Cut or Truth or Dare, it always has some of the more intense scares. I think Krampusnacht, because the storyline, didn't grab me as much as the other two that we've done. I feel like this one was like back to form, and it was definitely one of the best trails I've done at Sir Henry's in the 3 events I've gone to, because like that closet scene is super effective. It always is. I know, like we were talking after the event, and we're like, I hope that they revamped some of these locations to make it feel more fresh. We talked about that a second ago on the pod too, but this had like 2 characters that really like freaked me. They're freaky. 2 especially spooky characters. One was like this, I don't know if it was a ghost or a demon or what it was supposed to be, but it was like all like the face was like almost all black except for like white where its eyes and mouth should be. Like almost looked like the Insidious red-faced demon, but it was like black, or like a creepypasta kind of thing. And he just hissed at you, and it was like, I want to keep on walking, but also just want to stare at you because I feel like you're something out of my nightmares. Just want to double check if I remember that face. They were very spooky. And then as you're reading the storyline again, I started to draw some connections. And like, I know we saw the old man running around the house too. And I think he was probably one of the more freaky characters as well, just because of how he works within the storyline. I didn't realize he was dead. I didn't realize the 2 old people were dead the whole time. I thought he was just like the old man who's like, oh yes, all the teens come here and I'm going to kill them all. He's like, nope, he's the ghost. He was pretty freaky too. The mask, not so much, but just what he represents in the house and his storyline. Like, I thought that was particularly like spooky. Definitely a house to remember. It almost reminded me, for HHN fans, of Graveyard Games. It felt very much in that style. Like, sure, it doesn't have all the special effects and it doesn't have all of the, like spooky noises, but I think being almost entirely based on the talent that it's so spooky, and not so much the lights and the loud noises, and just like the spookiness of ambiance and the spookiness of real people talking at you and moving around at you in the shadows. Like, I think that's just as freaky, if not more so.
And teenagers.
Yeah. What was that?
And there's scary teenagers. Just like Graveyard Games. And a dark hallway.
Yeah.
And ghosts. Yeah, I definitely got Graveyard Game vibes with that. Like, it was very, very fun. It was both of our favorites for sure.
Yeah.
And it was my favorite trail at Halloween as well. I really loved the final cut. I know that you had a different favorite.
Yeah, Final Cut was up there. Like, I think between that and my number one, which was Rapture of the Deep, and that location hasn't come back during this 3-holiday season, but it looked like they started work on it for Halloween, because there's a lot more demolition happening over there when we walked in. So I think that's like the special effects house. And I only say that because I've only been, these past 3 seasons, but I'm pretty sure like that location is more for like special effects. And that one had like an anglerfish going down at you. And there's a lot more, like, there's a platform that shook while you were on it and whatnot. So I think that's where they deliver a lot of the special effects surprises. Whereas these other 2 locations are more about like the house location, the mansion location where he did Truth or Dare. That's very much like for the dark haunted house vibes. And then there's like that village location, that Headless and Sleigh Bells and Cupid's Revenge, where that is very much like you are outdoors, what could be coming from the trees and the shadows. And it allows for a lot of like fun haunted haunt like vibes, like, oh, this is where we're gonna have the chainsaw guy, and then creepy churches are still scary, and basically like deliver a good variety of scares. And I think that's actually really good for an independent haunt like this, to be able to have the resources to have such varied things,
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because I've been going there for a couple years. I've been going since 2020, where they had just the Halloween event, but it was kind of limited. Everyone had masks on, which they were very creative about doing, by the way. And they had to stay a certain amount of feet apart from you, which ended up having a lot of following, which was very creepy. So, which I'm glad they still do that, because it had a good effect to it. But yeah, so I've been going for quite a few years, and certainly since then, especially, they've had just so much growth. And I can't say anything about from before that point, since I didn't go back then, but I don't remember previous years them having that much of the special effects. I think definitely last year they went a lot more on the special effects, but I think that just shows like how much they've grown as a haunt and everything. And I think that is going to continue to be more of the effects house. But they have always had 3 trails at Halloween and 2 at the other events. So it's just really cool to see how those houses are evolving. And I loved Rapture of the Deep. I thought it was very creative. Just to kind of go into the rest of the event, they still had the 2 escape games, so Twisted Roses and Hidden Sweets. We did not get to do either of those just because it was going to rain. We've talked about it is an extra cost as well. It's $5 each for each escape game, so $10 if you want to do them both, and then $5 for the laser tag, which we've talked about is not our favorite, but they did have that as well. If that's something that you're interested in, we're just all very bad at it. and not as interested.
It was very popular, it seemed, on the night that we went to the Cupid's Revenge, the Love's Revenge event.
Yes, and it's fun to hear all the
There's
people.
that. I think we probably, if we did do it, we probably would have had a better experience as far as like having more people there.
I think so.
But if it's the same guns, I still don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. I got 0 kills when I did that last time. So, but yeah, so they did still have that as well. They do still have the axe throwing, which I have not ever seen anyone do, and it's always kind of dark over there. But I know that it was open.
I feel like they just had the stand up. I don't think they're actually using it
Oh, maybe not then.
at the event.
Okay.
I know they did
like,
during Christmas. It was open during Christmas, like because they had a guy out there, and they definitely did it during Halloween.
Okay.
But I didn't see that very active the night that we went to the Valentine's event.
Yeah, because they had the signs up, but they probably just still had them up from other events.
Yeah.
So they did have a couple of, and just one note about the escape games, the Hidden Sweets escape game. There is a mascot for it, and I cannot for the life of me remember his name, but I think he was German and he was like a chocolatier, and he was walking around talking to us, one of the walking characters, and he was talking about his chocolates and how he needed live people, and he stopped a bear with a knife from killing us because he needed us alive for his chocolates. So that was fun, and we talked to him a couple times and he remembered us. He was like, "Oh, you guys again, have you seen my chocolates yet?" So that was cool that they had it very interactive, like they had last year with Lil Jimmy, the gingerbread. So so another sweets house over there. And then there were some interesting, and another thing, last year they had like a tattoo parlor area in the back, where they had, fake tattoos that you could get and things like that. This year it was like a potion master, and he had a really cool puppet attached to him that he could move the head of, and it actually had like an electronic voice, so it would talk as well. And definitely look at pictures of that on their social media. It was very fun. So I like that they had that interactive area over there where he was talking about like making a heart and what potions could make a heart, and kind of his failures with that. So that's definitely fun to talk to them over there. And then lastly, just some increased food options. There was a street corn stand, which is really cool. They had corn on the cob, and you could also get it in a cup if you prefer it less messy. In that same corner where the axe throwing is, they had a snowball stand with like snow cones, and they had a lot of cool flavors. They had tiger's blood, which we talked about, we thought was just a Kona Ice thing, but I guess it is a flavor. I know it's like strawberry and other tropical flavors, maybe coconut, I don't know, but I'm sure they could tell you. There is butterbeer flavored, which is really cool. And then they just
I love that the Sir Henry's flavor was pina coladas.
Yes, I thought that was so fun.
Hey, if you're interested in hooking up with Sir Henry, he likes pina coladas, and I'm sure cool walks in the rain, because there was a very rainy event after we left.
And of course we saw him as well. Yeah, pleasure as always. But yeah, and they also had a lot of cool options that were like mixed flavors. Like they had a Bride of Frankenstein and all kinds of like different horror themed snow cones. So that was cool. At the Sir Henry's booth itself, I know they had chocolate covered strawberries, they had cake pops, they had nachos, corn dogs. So they still had those, and they were all pretty cheap. I think for a couple of chocolate covered strawberries, it was like $3, and I almost got them, and it didn't, just because I had had so many sweets before I got there. But yeah, definitely support them and come hungry if any of that sounds good to you next year or later this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of our favorite haunts for a reason, not only because it's much more affordable than like a Hallow Scream or an HHN, but they seem like really good people. It's scary. It's not like you're not going for, to pity the indie house. No, like it's like legit scary. It's legit fun. The walk around characters are always a blast. I think the girl with the giant shears, the giant scissors, she was one of the highlights for me as far as the characters go this year. And of course in the houses, you've got those memorable cupids and everything too. We didn't catch as many names as we did like Alabaster, the elf over at the Christmas event. But I mean, yeah, we love Sir Henry's, and we always look forward to going back and doing more. Eventually we'll read the Sir Henry's books, and I'm sure we'll have like a Patreon episode or something once we read through them both. There's a third one coming out. So if you love reading, make sure you go to Amazon or go to the website or what have you, wherever you get your independently published books. But I'm definitely looking forward to experiencing more Sir Henry's in the future. But yeah, the books are there to tide you over if you're looking forward to it. I can't wait for Halloween. Ooh. Or maybe they'll be like, hey, we're gonna have a 4th of July event.
I would love that. Sir Henry, if you're listening, make a 4th of July event. I think that'd be fun. You could do all kinds of cool practical effects with fake fireworks. You could have cool masks where people got their faces blown off. Scary Uncle Sam. I don't know. I think it'd be fun. Contact me for ideas. Killer_Kells with an S on Twitter.
Oh man.
Oh,
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, I
yeah.
think that's our show.
That's it. That's all we got. We are going to record some more content, of course, on a bonus episode. So definitely check us out on our $5 tier on Patreon if you're interested in hearing us chat more. But otherwise, I told you where you can find me on Twitter, killer_Kells. You can also find me on Instagram, Kelley D. Hoffman. And of course, if you want to comment wherever you're listening to this, we are happy to respond to you there as well.
Yeah, and you can follow me on Twitter at AdamJ_film. Don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at WorkshopTP. Bella's doing some great things with the memes over there.
We also have a TikTok. I have not posted anything on there yet, but technically we do have a TikTok. You can follow us at Theme Park Workshop. So that's super exciting. I definitely want to start getting some content on there of all of us. But yeah, so that will be coming very soon. It is in progress. And then our Instagram is also Theme Park Workshop.
Yes, and make sure you follow Bella too. She couldn't be here today. She's off saving the world or something. But you can follow her on Twitter at Bella Harvey with 2 I's and at Flynn Rider's Nose on Instagram. Lots of great theme park photos. I'm just going to shout her out like that. But yes, make sure you follow her, follow the show, follow us, and subscribe, comment, share. You should share it with a friend. Have a great day, a great morning, a great night, whenever you're listening, and we'll see you next time.
We love you. Bye.
Bye.